The uncomfortable truth we face today. You carry more knowledge in your pocket than entire libraries once held. You can learn anything, fact-check everything, and connect with experts worldwide instantly. By every logical measure, you should be the smartest person who ever lived. Yet something feels terribly wrong. Despite having unlimited access to information, you probably make worse decisions than your grandparents did with just common sense and a daily newspaper. You can Google any fact in seconds, yet you believe things that basic research would easily disprove. This paradox isn't your personal failing. It's the defining crisis of our time. Modern society has created an illusion of intelligence that masks a deeper problem. We've confused having access to information with actually understanding it. It's like believing you're a master chef because you can read recipes, or thinking you're a doctor because you can look up symptoms online. The reality is more disturbing than most people realize. While we swim in an ocean of data, our actual thinking abilities are drowning. This isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. And it's happening to everyone, including genuinely intelligent people who should know better. The great intelligence deception. Here's a fact that will shock you completely. Despite unprecedented access to educational resources, critical thinking scores have been declining steadily for over 2 decades. Major universities have documented this trend with growing alarm. While standardized IQ test scores have risen slightly over the past century, a phenomenon known as the Flynn effect, practical intelligence has been falling dramatically since the year 2000. We are technically smarter on paper, but functionally dumber in real life. This creates what researchers call pseudo-intelligence, a dangerous state where people feel informed and capable, while becoming increasingly dependent and incapable of independent thought. The timing of this decline isn't coincidental. It corresponds exactly with the rise of the internet, smartphones, and social media. The very technologies that promise to make us smarter are systematically destroying our ability to think. Dr. Sarah Chen, a cognitive psychologist at Stanford, puts it bluntly. We've created a generation that confuses information retrieval with intelligence. They feel smart because they can quickly access facts, but they've lost the ability to process, analyze, and synthesize information meaningfully. It's like having a massive library, but forgetting how to read. This pseudo-intelligence is particularly dangerous because it feels real. When you can instantly answer any question or settle any debate with a quick search, you feel knowledgeable and informed. But this feeling is deceptive. True intelligence is not about having access to information. It's about understanding how to think about information, how to question it, how to connect it to other knowledge, and how to use it wisely. These are precisely the skills that digital technology is eroding every day. Why more information actually makes you stupider. Traditional wisdom suggests that more information leads to better decisions and greater intelligence. Modern neuroscience reveals the opposite is true. Your brain has cognitive processing limits that evolved over millions of years. These limits worked perfectly when humans lived in small groups and dealt with a manageable amount of daily information. Your ancestors might encounter a few dozen new pieces of information each day: weather patterns, animal tracks, social dynamics within their group. Their brains could process this information thoroughly and make excellent decisions based on deep understanding. Today's reality is completely different and utterly overwhelming. Your brain, which evolved to handle dozens of information points daily, now receives thousands of data fragments every hour. Email notifications, news updates, social media posts, advertisements, text messages, and countless other information streams bombard your consciousness relentlessly. The result isn't enhanced intelligence. It's cognitive overload that forces your brain to adopt dangerous shortcuts and simplified thinking patterns just to cope with the overwhelming flood of data. These mental shortcuts, known as cognitive biases, multiply rapidly in information-rich environments. When your brain can't process everything thoroughly, it starts making assumptions, jumping to conclusions, and accepting information without proper analysis. You begin to mistake familiarity for truth, confuse correlation with causation, and allow emotions to override logic. The more information you consume, the more these harmful patterns become entrenched, creating a vicious cycle where increased information access actually decreases your thinking quality. The Google effect. How easy answers destroy deep thinking. Consider what happens when curiosity strikes and you immediately reach for your smartphone. This seemingly innocent action is rewiring your brain in profound and troubling ways. Dr. Michael Torres at UCLA conducted a revealing study that should terrify anyone concerned about human intelligence. He presented identical complex problems to two groups of participants. One group had internet access, while the other relied solely on their own knowledge and reasoning abilities. The results were eye-opening and disturbing. The internet-enabled group found answers more quickly, which initially seems positive. However, brain imaging revealed dramatically reduced neural activity in regions associated with deep thinking, creative problem-solving, and memory formation. Their brains essentially switched into passive mode, outsourcing the thinking process to external technology. Even more concerning, when both groups were tested a week later without internet access, the previously internet-dependent participants performed significantly worse on related problems. They had essentially trained their brains to be helpless without technological assistance. This phenomenon, known as the Google effect, or digital amnesia, represents a fundamental rewiring of human cognition. Your brain operates on a simple principle: use it or lose it. When you consistently rely on external sources for answers, the neural pathways responsible for deep analysis, creative thinking, and problem-solving begin to atrophy. You're literally training your brain to be a search engine rather than a thinking machine. The convenience of instant answers comes at the devastating cost of reduced cognitive capacity and intellectual independence. Your attention has become a commodity understanding. The attention economy is crucial to grasping why intelligent people are becoming functionally dumber. Your inability to focus deeply isn't a personal weakness or character flaw. It's the intended result of sophisticated manipulation by a trillion-dollar industry that profits from capturing and monetizing your attention. Technology companies employ teams of neuroscientists, behavioral economists, and addiction specialists whose sole purpose is making their products irresistible and psychologically addictive. Every design element of modern digital platforms is carefully crafted to hijack your attention and fragment your thinking. Notification sounds, colored badges, infinite scroll features, and pull-to-refresh mechanisms are all based on psychological research into human behavioral patterns. These companies use the same techniques that casinos employ to keep gamblers at slot machines, except instead of targeting your money directly, they're harvesting something far more valuable: your cognitive capacity and mental energy. The statistics reveal the shocking extent of this attention theft. The average person checks their smartphone 96 times per day, which translates to once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Each interruption doesn't merely steal a few seconds. It creates what psychologists call attention residue, where part of your mind remains focused on the interruption even after you've returned to your original task. This constant fragmentation makes sustained deep thinking virtually impossible and dramatically reduces your ability to engage in complex reasoning or creative problem solving. The multitasking myth. That's rewiring your brain. Society has sold you a dangerous lie about multitasking. You've been told that juggling multiple tasks simultaneously makes you more productive and efficient. The scientific reality is not only the opposite, but far more alarming than most people realize. When you believe you're multitasking, your brain is actually rapidly switching between different tasks, and each switch carries significant cognitive costs that compound over time. Research consistently shows that people who multitask regularly perform worse on every measurable aspect of cognitive function: memory retention, attention span, reasoning ability, and problem-solving skills. But the damage goes far deeper than temporary performance reduction. Chronic multitasking actually changes your brain's physical structure in ways that can be observed through advanced imaging techniques. Heavy multitaskers show measurably less gray matter in brain regions responsible for sustained attention, impulse control, and emotional regulation. This isn't just correlation, it's causation. You're literally shrinking the parts of your brain that make you intelligent, focused, and emotionally stable. The brain regions that expand in chronic multitaskers are those associated with stress response anxiety and reward-seeking behavior. In essence, constant task switching is rewiring your brain to be more anxious, more easily distracted, and more dependent on external stimulation for basic functioning. This represents a fundamental change in human cognitive architecture that reverses millions of years of evolutionary development. How algorithms are systematically destroying critical thinking. Every digital platform you use employs sophisticated algorithms designed to predict and influence your behavior. Google's search algorithms, Facebook's news feed, YouTube's recommendation system, and TikTok's content delivery all analyze thousands of data points about your preferences, behaviors, and psychological patterns to determine what information you see. While this might seem helpful or even harmless, these algorithmic systems are creating what researchers call filter bubbles that systematically narrow your intellectual horizons and destroy your ability to think critically about complex issues. Dr. Eli Pariser, who first identified the filter bubble phenomenon, warns that these systems create invisible editing of the web, where your personal information ecosystem becomes increasingly isolated from perspectives that challenge your existing beliefs. Over time, you stop encountering ideas that would force you to think critically, question assumptions, or grapple with intellectual complexity. The algorithm essentially creates a customized reality bubble that reinforces your biases while shielding you from information that might expand your understanding or challenge your worldview. This algorithmic filtering supercharges one of the most dangerous cognitive biases, confirmation bias, which is our natural tendency to seek information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. In pre-digital times, confirmation bias was naturally limited by the physical world. Reading a newspaper meant encountering diverse viewpoints whether you wanted to or not. Talking with neighbors exposed you to different perspectives. The physical environment forced intellectual diversity. Now, algorithms ensure you rarely encounter challenging ideas, creating intellectual echo chambers that make critical thinking increasingly difficult and eventually unnecessary. The neurological hijacking of your brain. Understanding what's physically happening inside your brain will motivate you to take action like nothing else can. Your brain operates on a fundamental principle called neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every action you take, every thought you think, and every experience you have literally reshapes your brain's physical structure by strengthening certain neural pathways while weakening others. This process never stops throughout your entire life, which means the digital technologies you use daily are continuously rewiring your brain in measurable and increasingly problematic ways. Modern neuroscience has documented the specific brain changes caused by excessive digital consumption, and the results are deeply alarming. Regular internet users show decreased gray matter in brain regions responsible for sustained attention, deep information processing, impulse control, and empathy. Simultaneously, they show increased activity in areas associated with immediate reward seeking, rapid task switching, stress responses, and anxiety. Your brain is literally being restructured to be less capable of complex thought and more dependent on instant gratification. This isn't hyperbole or exaggeration. It's measurable neurological damage that can be observed through brain imaging technology. The dopamine system plays a crucial role in this destructive rewiring process. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical as commonly believed, but rather the seeking chemical that drives motivation and learning. Your ancestors used dopamine effectively to motivate hunting, problem-solving, and survival activities. A successful hunt provided a moderate dopamine release that encouraged future hunting behavior. This system worked perfectly for thousands of years, until we invented technologies that deliver artificially intense dopamine spikes. Smartphones provide unpredictable rewards through notifications, likes, and messages that trigger dopamine releases, far exceeding anything your brain evolved to handle, essentially hijacking your motivation system and making normal activities feel boring and unsatisfying. The real-world consequences of cognitive decline. This isn't just abstract neuroscience. The intelligence decline is manifesting in dangerous and observable ways throughout society. One of the most troubling trends is how genuine experts are making increasingly poor decisions outside their areas of specialization. Brilliant medical doctors fall for obvious political misinformation. Accomplished engineers believe easily debunked conspiracy theories. Successful business leaders make terrible personal financial decisions. This happens because expertise in one narrow field creates overconfidence in others. And when combined with algorithmic echo chambers and amplified confirmation bias, even genuinely intelligent people become vulnerable to manipulation and pseudoscientific thinking. The creativity crisis represents another devastating consequence of our digital cognitive decline. Creativity requires sustained periods of unstimulated thinking, what we commonly call boredom, during which your brain makes novel connections between ideas, processes complex information, and generates innovative insights. However, modern life has virtually eliminated boredom by filling every spare moment with information consumption. Every waiting period, every quiet moment, every potential pause gets immediately filled with smartphone checking, video watching, or podcast listening. Your brain never receives the cognitive downtime necessary for creative processing, resulting in a measurable decline in innovative thinking across all sectors of society. Perhaps most concerning is the collapse of social intelligence and empathy, particularly among younger generations. Social media interactions differ fundamentally from face-to-face communication because they eliminate crucial nonverbal elements that comprise the majority of human communication: facial expressions, body language, vocal tone, and immediate emotional feedback. This creates what psychologists term digital autism, a condition where people become increasingly unable to read social cues, understand others' perspectives, or navigate complex human relationships. Studies show that empathy levels among college students have dropped 40% since 1980, with the steepest declines occurring precisely when digital communication became dominant in society. The path to cognitive recovery, a practical guide. The situation isn't hopeless, but recovery requires intentional effort and systematic approach. Your brain's neuroplasticity, the same mechanism that allowed digital technology to damage your cognitive abilities, can also be harnessed to rebuild and strengthen them. The key is understanding that cognitive recovery works like physical rehabilitation. It requires consistent practice, gradual progression, and patience with the rebuilding process. You didn't lose these abilities overnight, and you won't regain them instantly either. The first phase involves digital detoxification to stop the ongoing cognitive damage. Begin by tracking your actual device usage using built-in screen time monitoring or apps like Rescue Time. Most people are shocked to discover they spend 6 to 8 hours daily consuming digital content, often while believing they use technology only occasionally. Once you understand the true extent of your digital consumption, start systematically reducing exposure to the most harmful platforms. Social media applications with algorithmic feeds represent the worst cognitive toxins and should be eliminated first. Delete these apps from your devices entirely, and if you must access these platforms occasionally, do so only through web browsers on computers to create friction and reduce impulsive usage. Attention restoration forms the second critical phase of cognitive recovery. Your ability to focus deeply resembles a muscle that has atrophied from disuse and must be gradually rebuilt through progressive training. Start with short periods of focused work, just 10 to 15 minutes initially, without any digital interruptions whatsoever. Gradually extend these focus periods as your attention span strengthens and deepens. Practice monotasking religiously. When you read, only read. When you write, only write. When you have conversations, only listen and engage. This feels uncomfortable initially because your brain has been trained to expect constant stimulation and distraction, but this discomfort indicates the rebuilding process is working. Rebuilding deep learning and critical thinking skills. The third phase involves actively rebuilding your capacity for deep learning and critical analysis. Return to reading physical books for at least 30 minutes daily, starting with material slightly below your current attention level and gradually increasing complexity as your focus improves. Physical books eliminate the temptation to click away while engaging different neural pathways than screen-based reading. Take notes by hand, which activates brain regions involved in memory formation and comprehension more effectively than typing. Engage in substantive face-to-face conversations about complex topics that require sustained thinking and multiple perspectives. Critical thinking skills require deliberate practice with increasingly challenging material. Actively seek out intelligent arguments that challenge your existing beliefs, but focus on the strongest versions of opposing viewpoints rather than easily dismissed strawman arguments. Before accepting any claim or piece of information, practice Socratic questioning. What evidence supports this claim? What evidence contradicts it? Who benefits if people believe this? What assumptions am I making? What would convince me that I'm wrong? Study formal logic, cognitive biases, and statistical reasoning. These represent your intellectual immune system against manipulation and should be as fundamental as basic literacy. Create an information diet as carefully planned as your food diet. Choose high-quality sources over junk information, prioritize depth over breadth, and prefer primary sources over commentary whenever possible. Set specific times for information consumption rather than grazing constantly throughout the day. Most importantly, balance information input with reflection and processing time. Knowledge without reflection becomes mere accumulation rather than understanding. Creating an intelligence-supporting lifestyle. Physical habits profoundly impact cognitive function and must be optimized for mental performance. Regular aerobic exercise dramatically improves brain function by increasing BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes neural growth and connectivity. Even 20 minutes of daily walking can significantly boost cognitive performance and attention span. Prioritize high-quality sleep by avoiding screens for at least 1 hour before bedtime, since sleep is when your brain consolidates memories and processes the day's information. Meditation and mindfulness practices train your brain to resist distraction and maintain present moment awareness. Start with just 5 to 10 minutes daily of focused breathing or mindfulness meditation. These practices strengthen the same neural networks responsible for sustained attention and emotional regulation that digital overconsumption weakens. Engage in analog creative activities that require sustained focus and produce tangible results. Drawing, painting, crafting, cooking, gardening, or playing musical instruments. These activities rebuild your ability to maintain attention while creating something meaningful and lasting. Spend regular time in natural environments without digital devices. Research shows that nature immersion restores cognitive capacity and reduces mental fatigue in ways that artificial environments cannot replicate. The Japanese practice of forest bathing has been scientifically validated to improve focus, reduce stress, and enhance creative thinking. Even brief periods in natural settings can significantly improve cognitive performance and emotional well-being. Building a smarter social environment. Individual efforts alone are insufficient. You need social support for cognitive recovery. Deliberately cultivate relationships with people who value deep thinking over quick reactions, who read books regularly, who engage in substantive conversations, and who model intellectual humility. Intellectual peer groups naturally raise your own cognitive standards and provide accountability for maintaining healthy thinking habits. Share what you learn about cognitive health with friends and family, helping others understand how digital overconsumption affects their thinking abilities. Support quality information and educational content by paying for journalism, buying books, and supporting creators who produce thoughtful, well-researched material. The free information economy, where your attention and data become the product, is precisely what's making society functionally dumber. When you pay directly for information, you align the incentives toward quality rather than engagement manipulation. The choice that defines your future. The intelligence paradox isn't an inevitable consequence of technological progress. It's the result of choices, both individual and collective. Every day you choose between activities that enhance or degrade your cognitive capacity, that build or destroy your ability to think clearly and independently. The forces attempting to capture and monetize your attention are powerful, well-funded, and sophisticated, but they're not unstoppable if you understand how they work and take deliberate action to resist them. Your brain's neuroplasticity means you can rebuild the cognitive abilities that digital technology has eroded, but this requires consistent effort and patience with the recovery process. The question isn't whether you're intelligent enough to succeed in the modern world, but whether you're committed enough to reclaim your intelligence from the systems designed to steal it. The most intelligent action you can take right now is recognizing that your cognitive capacity is under attack and implementing concrete steps to defend and rebuild it. Your future self, and society as a whole, depends on the choice you make today.